Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name's Joe. Today I'm going to be doing the solitaire gameplay example for Border Reivers. This is the Anglo-Scottish Border Raids, 1513 to 1603, designed by Ed Beach and published by GMT Games. I did a first look at this game a little bit ago, so you may want to check that out. But I am going to kind of step through the entire gameplay example, so this will actually show you how the game plays as a solitaire game. This is a game that can accommodate up to 6 players, so it probably is better being played as a multiplayer game. However, we will take a crack at it, looking at it from the solitaire angle, and then if I have time later on, I perhaps may do a video that would show it from the multiplayer angle. So without further ado, let's get to talking about setup. This game has a fairly large footprint, so I don't have everything that's out and in play for this visible, but you do get to see most of it here. We have 2 solo play aids over here, the opposing player's draft sheet and the solo play aid. They're kind of half out of shot, maybe more like a third out of shot. And then on the other side over here, we have our card decks. We have our victory track, and then I also have my family card is off to that side. And I'll slide the camera around as we play to show stuff when it's appropriate. But you can see the entire game board, except for the 2 marches that are not taking part, the 2 families that are not taking part. The 2 Eastern marches, both English and Scottish, are not part of the solitaire game. It's basically the solitaire player against 3 opponents. And in this one, the play example sets it up as this person, Thomas, who finished in 3rd place in a recent 6-player Border Reivers session, narrowly behind the winner. Before the group gets together again, he wants to try a solo game to improve his play. He once again chooses to control the Dacre family. That's here. So this is our area right here. This brown line is the border. And then this thick brown line is kind of the inter-country border between Scotland and England. So we border the Fenwick family here on the English side to our east. And then up here we have the Kerrs and the Maxwells on these 2 sides, on the Scottish side. So we followed our setup instructions from the manual in section 3.0, where we have our family sheet set up. We have our cubes all in the appropriate areas. We have our 4 sheep. You get 1 sheep in each of the 4 farm areas that you own, and that's true for your opponents as well. You also have cattle and horses that are tracked. The AI players do not have cattle or horses. They're abstracted out. The only thing they do have on the map are sheep. You see cubes here in jail, and the feud box for Maxwell, who's across the border from us. So we have their color cubes here in our home and our jail. And the same is true over here. The jail one represents having a Reiver that you've already captured. So you're already holding an enemy Reiver. Everyone's notoriety, this is their notoriety track. This is Maxwell and Kerr. They're on 3, as are Dacre and Fenwick on the English side. So I set up their target and warden cards, and we'll talk about those as we get through the gameplay here. So I removed the cards and pieces for Hume and Grey. So Hume would be here in the East Scottish East March, and Grey is in the English East March. So those families aren't part of the game, as I mentioned. So their stuff has been removed. So we have a couple of cups here, opaque containers, containing the notoriety draw cubes, 7 for each of my 3 opponents, plus a permanent defense tokens. Each one of them have 4. So here on the map, you have castles, which are defendable. You also have towns. So you have this little kind of single building represents a town. This is the family home, the family estate, the family seat. And then you have the jail. And you can see you have 4 farm areas that are in this green bordered with the shepherdess here with some sheep. So you put a sheeple in there to represent your sheep. And each family has 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then ours are over here. We have Caldew Valley. We have Eden Valley. We have Tyndale is theirs actually. We have Earthing Valley and Line Valley are the Dacra farm areas. So once that's set up, then we have farm region tokens. These are kind of right here. So each one of these will be drawn, and they can let you protect a specific area. And we'll get into the specifics of how all this stuff works. You have defense tokens as well, and so on and so forth, that give you extra dice. So the way combat works is it's basically a dice off, and we'll see that later on in the game. So the way the game works is there are 4 phases or seasons within each turn. There's 3 turns. Each one of those turns has 4 phases, basically is what I call them, but they're seasons, and they're based on seasons. So you go through summer, autumn, winter, spring. And then at the end of spring, you reset and you go on to the next turn. And at the end of turn 3, you calculate the final victory totals and determine who wins and who loses and so on. The last step to set up for the solo game is to configure the summer deck for each of the 3 turns. So each turn has its own deck. And turn 1's deck, which I have right here in my hand, so this is the turn 1 deck. There is a turn 2 deck and a turn 3 deck as well. You have to take out 10 cards that have solo counterparts. So there are 10 cards spread across the 3 decks that have a solitaire counterpart, because their regular version essentially is only useful in the multiplayer game. So they change what's on the cards. So we have 10 cards that are replaced for the solo game and are replaced with the corresponding solo cards. There are event cards. The 3 events not applicable are removed from the event deck. The remaining 9 cards are shuffled, so you do have 12 event cards. They're actually over here. So you remove the 3 that are not applicable. Then you have your populate your discard pile. The first thing we do is deal 7 of the turn 1 cards. We take 7 and they get automatically put into the summer card discard pile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You do not look at these and you leave them face down. You put them in this summer discard. Now there are ways to look at those based on cards you might get later on, but for now they're basically a mystery. Okay, so now you go to the first draw. So the first thing you do is you draw 3 cards. So we take 1, 2, 3, top 3 cards, flip them over. We have Johnny Armstrong, which has an attack +2. And then you see you get bonus attack dice. He's a Reiver. The horse indicates that he's a Reiver. Then you have the Keeper of Tyndale. Must be English to play, so we are English. We can keep this card and use it. And then you have Defensible Church, which allows you to flip down 2 of your sheep in regions that contain a town or family castle to show they are protected by vassals. So the obvious play here is to draft Johnny Armstrong with his lofty 2 raid rating to power up your raiding game for the first turns. But the nuanced play is to draft the Keeper of Tyndale. Although this card's ability doesn't trigger till the end of the turn 2 and 3 summers, it does allow Thomas to choose his discard round strategically those turns, moving an expensive card into the discard pile and then retrieving it with the Keeper at no cattle cost. Cattle is basically the currency of the game. So we have Defensible Church, and here on this card, and I'm going to slide it over a little bit, we have a Vassals box, and we have an attack box, and those 2 go in there. Now on my display, which is right here, okay, and you have to mark your number of sheep, so you have sheep on map, and it's 4. So here we have our Keeper of Tyndale. That goes in office number 1. You match the symbol to what's on the card. So that goes there. So this allows us to select and play a discarded summer card for free at the end of the 2nd and 3rd summers after Abbot of Kelso. Maybe another office or an allied grain replacing this one. And so then the draft just continues on. So we do the second draft. So this time we get Scott, who's a warden. That's the warden symbol. Scottish Highland has a sheep symbol on it, and then signal fires. Some more tough decisions. The Scott card can be very strong if paired with bold Bucloth. I probably didn't say that right. Bold Bucloth, But that Reaver doesn't come out until turn 3. It is also important to grab an allied grain sometime during turn 1, because the solo player has a nice advantage of always placing notoriety last, but Thomas is worried about spending 7 of his 8 cattle on the first 2 drafts, and that just reminds me I didn't pay for my stuff. So we have cattle counters down here, and this is a 5, and it cost us 4, so I'm going to put this out, and I'm going to take 1 change. That actually leaves us with 4. Okay, so getting back to what we were doing here, we're worried about spending 7 of our 8 cattle on the first 2 drafts, and I'm hoping for a West March grain. So we're going to take number 30, Signal Fires, and places his castle garrison at Bow Castle, and we spend 1 cattle for this. So we place our castle garrison, which is marked by this counter right here. We put that on Bow Castle here. And that gives us, as you can see here on the bottom, well, maybe you can't see because it's really small, but it has 2 dice symbol here in the lower left corner. That means we get 2 extra defense dice if our castle is attacked. And Signal Fires is the first one to go into the out of play pile, which is this guy right here. Not reviewable, which means you can't use it, you can't look at it. Not that we would necessarily need to. So then we have to put Scott and the Scottish Highland into their appropriate places. So Scottish Highland goes to sheep, and Scott goes in the notoriety box. The colors also kind of guide you in where things go. Either the symbols or the colors will tell you where to go. And it also has attack here, and this is the attack box, notoriety, sheep, and then vassals. And then if there was a defense or a permanent defense, they would go in there as well. All right, so now we're on to 3rd draft. So we draw 3 more cards, 1, 2, 3. And we get Captain of Berwick, Chillingham Castle, and Foggy Night. Okay, so finally an easy choice. We can't take the Captain of Berwick because we've already drafted an officer. So he would go to the attack box like that. And I need cattle for unrestricted drafting later this turn. So 24, Chillingham Castle it is. This is a sheep card. If English gain 6 cattle, if Scottish gain 4 cattle. So we're going to get 6 cattle by doing this. So that'll give us 6 more cattle, which gives us a total of 9 now. And then this would go in the out of play box as well. So we'll take a 5 and a 1. And we now have 9 cattle. I believe that's right. Yep. A 5 and 4 ones. That's 9. And Foggy Night here will go into the attack cards. So we'll put them here. All right. Now we go to our 4th draft. And we again draw 3. 1, 2, 3. And we get Earl of Angus. We get Provost of Dumfries, which you have to be Scottish to play, which will prevent us from taking that one. And Border Reivers. Okay, so we know Provost is out, so that card is put on the draft sheet immediately. And this is a notoriety card, so it goes in the notoriety pile. Choosing between the other 2 is trickier. 3 new sheep could be a boon economically, but Thomas decides he doesn't yet have the defenses to protect them. So he's going to take card number 6, the Earl of Angus, and place that in the warden space of his family sheet, paying the required 1 cattle to the bank. So you can claim this warden's defense token with values of, for a raid, 3 die, for a feud 1, and for a jailbreak 1. All defense dice gain +1 DRM. No rerolls from the event Rough Wooing may be taken in the march he is positioned in. So we're going to put this in our warden spot, and we're going to put our Cheviot's here in the sheep box. And we go to our 5th draft. So again, 3 cards, 1, 2, 3. We get Early Defenses, Signal Fires, and Devil's Beef Tub. So Early Defenses is a defense token, which would go in this spot. Then we have Signal Fires, which is a permanent defense +2, which goes there. And of course, the Beef Tub is another attack card. So For the first time, Thomas has attempted to dump this set of 3 cards into the Summer Cards discard pile. He's already drafted 2 defensive cards, so the first 2 are not of great interest. That would be early defenses and signal fires. Devil's Beef Tub is tempting, however, in the large rage you can get by turn 3. It can add 10 or more victory points. So he decides to draft it, boosting his cattle back up to 9. Did I pay my 1 cattle? I think I forgot. I keep forgetting to pay my cattle, man. But we're going to get it right back, so that's kind of a wash. Because you can see it's got a +1 cattle symbol on it. So we get a cattle for this. Okay, now with Devil's Beef Tub, you do keep it and you have a held card spot on your family sheet. You can see held cards. Now in a multiplayer game, you would put this like this. Here in a solo game, it doesn't matter because nobody can see anyway. So we're just going to put that there and hold it because in turn 3, we can use this and gain a whole bunch of victory points. Now we'll put the signal fires in the permanent defenses and we'll put the early defenses with this nice looking dog on it in the defense tokens, like so. We go to the 6th draft. There are 7 total. Just like 7 wonders, I think. So we have 1, 2, 3. And this time we get Maid Lilliard, which is another one that would add a cattle. Fair Maiden Lilliard, or Lillard maybe, lies under this stain. Little was her stature, but muckle was her fame. Upon the English loons she laid money thumps, and when her legs were cut it off, she fought upon her stumps. Roll 1 more die in this battle, so this is a good one to have as well. And we also have another ward in here, but we already have one of, actually we don't. This is a grain card actually, now I'm looking at it correctly here. So in this one, well, we were hoping for a grain and we did get one. Foster is a grain, but he's not a Westmarch grain, who are Carlton and Johnstone. So it's a risk, but he decides to discard this card set. So that means all 3 of these go into the discard pile, where we might be able to retrieve it later with one of them later with the Keeper of Tyndale. And so no cards go to the opposing players in that turn. Now we go to our final draft. 1, 2, 3. Galloway Cattle, Carlton, and Johnstone. Look at that, the 2 Westmarch Wardens. Thomas's patience has paid off. He drafts Johnstone, figuring the extra notoriety placement from that family is worth slightly more than Carlton's ability to add a combat die. So what we're looking at here is, let's put the cattle on the back for a moment. So here on Johnstone, you can see it's not playable by Maxwell. So you get a bonus attack die in the Scottish Westmarch and the English Westmarch. In winter, add 2 notoriety in any combination of Scottish Westmarch, English Westmarch, and or the debatable land, which I didn't talk about, but that's right here. Kind of a, not a no man's land, so to speak, but more like unclaimed or unassigned land. It could be part of Scotland, could be part of England. Nobody really owns it. Now, Carlton, on the other hand, he gets a bonus attack die in those 2 and the debatable land, and he adds a notoriety in one of those 3 areas too. But we chose to take Johnstone. So Johnstone will become one of our allied grains. So here's the allied grain area. We place Johnstone on there. You can see we still do not have a Reaver. And then this one is kind of a flexible one. You can have 2 offices or 2 grains, but not until turn 2. Okay, so not taking those means that Carlton will go into the notoriety box. So Galloway Cattle, we have to read this, and it says opponents immediately add random card from discard. So we have to pull a random card out. And we pull out Forster, which is an attack card, and it goes on top of there. And our Galloway Cattle card gets placed out of play. That was the final draft. So by rule, the last 6 cards, and we do have 6 cards, these last 6 cards are awarded to the opposing player. Okay, 2 of them, so these are the 6 cards, 2 of them are going to trigger immediate effects. So looking through here, number 15, Abbot of Kelso, must be Scottish to play. Opponents add random card from discard at end of second and third summers. So it's placed on the solo play aid in the opposing player cards in play box. So that's on this player aid here. And it's kind of right here at the bottom. So I'm going to put that there. And the other one is this right here, which is a solo version. You can see it says S36. So this is a solo card. Day of Truce. So the Day of Truce awards notoriety to Thomas's opponents immediately. So he's going to draw a light blue and dark blue cube. Now, you're supposed to do these random, but of course, because we are doing this through a play example, we pick what we're told to. So they get a blue one and, well, basically both Scottish families get a notoriety token. So they each get 2 notoriety in their home marches, moving them up to 5. And the drawn cubes go in the opposing player's drawn cubes for notoriety, so we put them in here. Then the other 4 cards, so this would go to the out of play, I believe. Yep, goes to the out of play. And then you would put these cards in the proper location. So this is a Basel card. The other 3 are all attack cards, so they will all go into the attack pile. Try to neaten that up a little bit. There's a lot of attack cards in there. And that's the end of the summer term. So once again, I forgot to update my cattle. I go down to 6. But in autumn, we have an economic update, and we gained 3 cattle back, so I am back to 9. So we're going to draw events now. So you would draw events here at the start of the autumn phase. And the event card deck is right here. We draw 2 cards. 1, 2. And we flip them over, and we have Ankrum Moor and Rough Wooing. So Ankrum Moor is a battle card. Now there are spots here, 1 in each march, that represent battle sites. And Ankrum Moor, as you might see, is in the Scottish middle march. So we put the card here, and that will be resolved during winter. As for Rough Wooing, this will go in the current events area, and that's over here on this end of the board. It's kind of out of shot. So this is just a holding area for events that are active this turn. So you can see it's available to attacker during raids or battles occurring in Scotland or the debatable land. So anything like this is this is Scotland, obviously. Debatable land is here. Any fighting in there, this card would work with it. You can see with 4 players, you use 6 dice, solo 4 dice. So we're going to put this over here, and I'm going to put 4 dice with it. Okay, so next we place our solo player defenses. So Thomas allocates the Earl of Angus to the Eden Valley and his deputy warden to Caldew Valley, his 2 farm regions most likely to be attacked since they have no permanent defenses. Okay, so up here we have our wardens. So here's the Earl of Angus, and we have he's our warden. So we drew him in the summer turn, and here's his chit. So he is going to be in Eden Valley, which is right here. And then we have a deputy warden as well. And the deputy warden is going to Caldew Valley, which is right here. And that completes the solo player defenses. Now we have to do the opponent's draft cards. So we have to handle all these cards that were drafted for the AI families during the summer turn. So the next step after that is to do the drafted cards. So we have our drafted cards here. We'll start with attack. So you take the deck or the attack cards that were drawn for the AI, and you add up the values of the attacks at the bottom. So we have a 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 twos. So that makes 13. You divide that by 3 for the 3 AI players. That leaves 4 because you round down. So they're going to get 4 attack dice, and these cards go out of play. So you take 4 attack dice, and you put them in the base attack dice box. Then you move on to notoriety. And notoriety, you roll, or rather you draw cubes. And you can see these all have a value of 2. So we're going to draw 3 cubes and roll 2 dice and then use those to determine where on the which notoriety track it impacts. So let me put these right here for the moment. We're going to draw out. So the first one we draw is a Fennec cube, the red. Now we would roll 2 dice, and according to the play example, we roll a 3 and a 5. Second die, there's a rule. There are rules for how you read the dice. I won't go into them in depth, but basically, it's kind of a decision tree that determines where they go. So this is going to go in the debatable land at 2. So Fennec has 2 notoriety in the debatable land. And we'll take this out. That's the first cube. Second cube we pull is for Kerr. So the Kerr cube comes out. This time the roll is a 3-4. So this time neither die will take the lead, so they're going to put it in the English Middlemarch. So they get a 2 here against the family with which they're feuding. And for our third one, we draw again. And we draw another Fennec cube. And we have to roll. And we roll a 1-5. And neither die takes the lead. And by taking the lead, it means advancing beyond the leading notoriety cube in that area. So debatable land was open, so 2 would take the lead, of course. But when you're talking about the West March, the Middle March, the 2 Middle Marches and the West March, or actually any of these marches, a 2 notoriety, which is what you're getting off these cards, isn't going to be enough to take the lead. This one is going in the Scottish West March. Now these would go out of play as well. So since we just did notoriety, I feel like I should explain how you determine where things go. So we have 2 dice. You roll them. You roll one, then the other. So we rolled a 1 and then a 5. Now what these do is they equate to specific areas on the board. Now if we look here in the rule book, 1 is the Scottish West March, 2 is the Scottish Middle, 3 is English Middle, 4 is English West. Then we have debatable and then home. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. You look at the values and the first die takes the lead. Again, if adding notoriety to the march indicated by the first die roll puts this opponent in the lead or a tie, place it there. So that's what I was talking about. Like debatable land had 0, so you automatically are going to take it if you're putting 2 in there. So that's why Fennec on the first card roll, they actually put it there because they used the 5 for the debatable land and put it in there. So that's how that works. And I felt like I should probably explain that because it's not really clear without looking at that. So now we do sheep, and we have to look at the total number of sheep cards, and there's 2 cards, each has a value of 2. So that's 4 sheep. So you take that many sheep and one at a time place them standing on the map in a farm region determined by a random draw from the farm region tokens for sheep placement box on the solo play aid. So that's these guys here. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have 4 sheep to place, so I'm going to put these out of play. I've got my 4 sheep. Now you have to draw randomly from here. And according to our play example, the sheep go to the Scottish Middle March up here. And they go to Scottish West March, Eskdale, so here. And then 2 to Annandale, so up here. Okay. And then you see the 4 chits that were moved from here to here. So basically you just draw from here and move them over, and then once this box is empty, you'll move 12 randomly back to this one and go back and forth, vice versa, as needed whenever one box fills up and you need something in the other box. And then you would do the basiling. So you take your your Basel cards here, and we again had 2, each is 2. So these are also going to go out of play. And you turn the sheep on their side. So one of these goes on the side, 2 of these on their side, and 1 of these on his side. So that indicates that they are basiled. And actually that means these guys all move back over here. Like so. Okay, so the next part is to do the opposition's defenses, starting here with early defenses, and they have one card with add one defense token. So there's a pile of defense tokens, and we got riding the bound, and we add that to their box here for that. And then we have our last card, which is a permanent defenses +2. So here you would draw from your permanent defenses box, and we draw out Belsay and Luneley Tower, and Belsay is here, and Luneley Tower is here. And you see these lines, and we'll talk about how these impact things when we get to the winter turn and we actually do combat. And speaking of which, we have to draw our defense tokens off here, and they are randomly placed in all the other areas, I guess. As the last phase of the autumn turn, we place all our defenses out, which I've already done. You can see they're placed face down so that you as the solo player do not know what they are, because when you go to attack, you're not going to know what you're going to be facing until you actually face them. And in the multiplayer game, obviously it would work the same way, where you would place your defense tokens and you wouldn't know what your opponents have, so you attack somewhat blind. And so now we'll move on to the winter turn. So the first thing we do in the winter turn is we do solo player notoriety. Thomas has 2 notoriety from his Johnstone grain. Right here, as you can see, it says notoriety +2. So that is the grain that we drew or drafted in the summer. So we get 2 notoriety there, and we'll put 1 in the debatable land, just to kind of get on the board there. And we'll use the other one to boost our home value to 4. Okay, so now we have to assemble our target deck for the winter, because the winter is when all combat occurs. And there's 4 different types of battles. There's feud, jailbreaks, raids, and battles. And the battle is what this card would indicate here, our event card. Each of the factions has 6 target cards. So these would be Dacre's 6 cards. So you draw 2 from each family, and you put them in a pile without looking at them, and then you have to decide which 2 target cards he wants to use. So we will be using Fennec, Maxwell, and Kerr, and we'll draw 2 of each, and then we'll select 2 that we wish to use. Okay, so I've done that. I've drawn the cards and randomly shuffled them. And actually what I did was I pulled a Hume card and stuck that on top, because Hume's not in the game. So that hides what the top card is. Okay, so what we do next is we draw that top card. So we pull it out. I'm just going to pull it out from behind the Hume card. It's a Kerr, and we flip it over, and it's Reaver +1 wild card. Target any march for raid. Add +1 to all attack dice in that raid. So we're going to put this down. We're going to roll 1 die, and we get a 4. And so using the same system we used before, a 4 is the English West March, which is us, actually. As he had predicted when setting up defenses, the raid will be on a farm region without permanent defenses, and as luck would have it, another roll determines that target to be Eden Valley, just where the Earl of Angus is waiting, so right here. So we place our attack 1 indicator for Maxwell there. The Kerrs attack with the opponent's 4 base dice +1 for the unbastled sheep. All 5 have a +1 DRM. The rolls are 1, 1, 2, 6, 6. That equals 1 cattle hit and 2 sheep hits. Then the defense gets to roll with the Earl of Angus. You can see he gets a DRM as well with 3 dice. So he rolls a 1, 4, and 5, which results in a block against a sheep hit and a capture. So Thomas's cattle will drop to 8, so we lose 1 cattle. And again, we don't track cattle or horses for the other families, only sheep. So in addition to the cattle, we also lose the sheep that's in Eden Valley. That's this guy right here, and he goes back to the Scottish Middlemarch, and we place it in Liddesdale. We add a dark blue cube to the jail in Carlisle. And we add an orange cube to Cessford for the feud. And the target card is placed in the target discard. A capture result against one of Thomas's attacks would have caused a horse to be lost. Since this is an attack by the opposing player, that aspect of the result is ignored because, again, we don't track horses for the AI players. So now we have to draw our second card. So again, I'm just going to use Hume the cover, and I'm just going to pull the card out from behind it. Whoops. Wasn't supposed to see that, but this is another Kerr card. Whoops. And we flip it over. We can take this out. All right. So flip it over. It says targets. It's target opposite march. So English Middlemarch, Scottish Middlemarch. It can be raid or battle in the English Middlemarch or a battle in the Scottish Middlemarch. And if a cube is present, it can be feud or jailbreak. Now, they do have the cubes present, so this could be a feud or jailbreak. So let me put this here. So since Kerr has a battle to fight in their home march, that's what happens here. They'll roll 6 dice, the base attack dice of 4, because we have 4 base dice up here, plus 2 for their notoriety, and they score 3 hits. And again, all the die rolls are basically either not shown or just kind of abstracted out. But the English fight well here too, scoring blocks with both of their rolls. The second Kerr attack indicator is placed next to the Ancram Moor battle card, along with 1 dark blue cube to mark the hit that wasn't blocked. This Kerr target card is also discarded. Now we go on to the third one. So again, I'm going to go underneath the Hume card and pull out the next card, and that's my card. And it's target opposite march. So again, this is very similar to what we just saw. It's the same thing, but from my perspective. So we can have a raid or a battle in the Scottish West March or a battle in the English West March. And if a cube is present, we can do feud or jailbreak. So it's time for Thomas to go raiding, and he'll send 2 of his 3 horses on this one. He chooses Nithdale as his target and reveals the defense token in that farm region. So we're going to take 2 horses, and we're going to go to Nithdale, which is here. And we're going to reveal our defense token, which is a bad one for us. That's Hot Trod, which gives 3 dice. As you can see, there are 3 dice on there. So that's 3 dice for that one. Luckily, Thomas rolls a 5, so the Maxwell Warden does not appear to add a +1 DRM. Thomas rolls 4 dice, 2 for the horses, 1 for Johnstone, and 1 sheep. That come up as 1, 2, 5, and 6 for 2 sheep hits. He gets to take 2 re-rolls from Rough Wooing and a 3 and a 4 for 2 more cattle hits. The 3 defense dice are thankfully 1, 2, and 4, so he avoids the hot trod pursuit. Thomas scores 6 victory points, captures the sheep in Nithdale, which he uses to replace the sheep that were lost in Eden Valley. So we get 6 victory points. So I'm going to put my cube on 6 here on the victory track. We capture our sheep here in Nithdale, and we'll replace the one there in Eden Valley that we already lost. And we gain two cattle to go to 10. So I'm just going to put these out and take another 5 so that we now see that we have 5. Our horse is supposed to be down there. And expends his horses. So the horses are out of play. A light blue feud cube is placed in Mayworth. There's 2 there now. And the target card is placed out of play. Now we go to attack number 4. We draw another card out here. And it's Fennec. Target opposite march. So we've seen these before now. We know kind of what this is. So you can do a raid or a battle on the Scottish side, the other side of the border, or a battle in your own side if you have one, which we do not here. And if a cube is present, you can do a feud or a jailbreak. So we do have a cube in both the jail and the estate. So either one of these can be used for a feud or a jailbreak. There's no battle in English Middlemarch, as I said. The Rising of the North is not in play. And this card does not allow targeting the solo player or debatable land. So the card is moved out of play with no combat being triggered. That's because it's AI on AI, so you don't have to actually resolve that. And we put that out. Basically, when you're playing the solo game, I didn't really mention this before, but you're basically playing for your own score, and it doesn't really matter what the other 3 are doing. Only only in that how it relates to your score. So basically, combats between two AI families will not really impact the game at all, and we kind of like abstract it out and essentially ignore it. So now we go to attack number 5. And again, we pull the card underneath the Hume card. And it's Maxwell this time. So our friends here in the Scottish West March. Target same side, March. Okay, so it tells you again what you can do. Debatable land, which is what they're going to go with. I can tell you that right now. Raid or battle. They can do raid or battle in the East, Middle, or West. In West March, which is their own March, they can only do a battle. Again, no battle card there, so the battles are ignored. But they could raid the East or Middle. East is not in the game, so they could raid the Middle March, and they can raid the debatable land. And if the cubes are present, they could do a feud or a jailbreak. So they get to beat Thomas to this, because the goal for us as the human player would be to get these 2 sheep. It's not going to happen. The 2 sheep are going to end up going to the Maxwells. So we're going to put these guys in Nithsdale, which lost its, and in Annandale, which already has a bunch of sheep. And they're placed there to avoid Luneley Tower here. So it's on to the 6th attack. We have basically 3 left. This is Dacre again. Target same side March. So this would, we have our debatable land here, which of course now is empty. We can't do anything there. So we can fight a battle in our own March, which is impossible. No battles are possible, so we can either raid the Middle March or, again, East March is out. So basically the only thing we can do is raid Fenwick with this card. So we're going to actually choose a jailbreak, because you can do the jailbreak anywhere, right? It says if cube present. So as long as you have a cube there, you can do it. So we can do a jailbreak here in Dumfries. And if we succeed, we get to add a new horse. So that's the benefit of doing the jailbreak. So we reveal our defense token here, and it is Deputy Warden. So that's a 1 die. And so you roll to see if the actual warden shows up. It rolls a 3, which means no, he does not. So I've been leaving this on here, but this would have been a 3. We roll 3 dice, 1 for the horse, 1 for the cube, and 1 for Johnstone. We score 1 hit. And we're not eligible for the rough wooing reroll, since this is a jailbreak. And as you can see here on the rough wooing card, it says available to attacker during raids or battles occurring in Scotland or the debatable land. So we are in Scotland, but jailbreaks rather are not on here. So that does not allow a reroll. The defense roll misses. Thomas's victory points go to 8. He gets 2 notoriety in the West March. He gets the horse. This cube goes home. So he now has 4 horses. And the Maxwell family loses 1 notoriety. So they go down to 4. So we have two attacks left. We pull the next one. It's a Fenwick. Target same side March. Okay, so same thing. Basically, they can now attack us. They could have attacked the debatable land, but again, not going to happen. There are no battles possible. So it's probably going to be either a raid on our March or a feud or jailbreak. So the Fenwicks are going to raid Thomas, and the Caldew Valley is the target. They receive 5 dice, just like in the earlier attack. So they get 4 from that, and then an additional 1. And they are attacking. So they are attacking the Caldew Valley over here. And with their 5 dice, they roll 2 sheep and 1 cattle hit. The deputy warden fails to stop them. So we lose 1 cattle to push us back to 9. And the sheep is taken off to Reedsdale. We gain an orange cube in Fenwick. And we have one last one to do. I'm going to put the Hume card back. We have 1 last card. It's Maxwell. Remember, everyone has 2, so there's a total of 8. This one is the +1 wild card, which allows them to target any March for feud or jailbreak and add a +1 DRM to all attack dice in that feud or jailbreak. Also valid for a raid on any March. So they have the option here of doing something. So since the Maxwells have 2 feud cubes here in Naworth, that's going to be their target, because this outnumbers their jailbreak cube, of which they only have 1. Now, Thomas has no defense token here. So the Maxwells get to roll 6 dice with no defense dice. They score 2 hits. Their 2 cubes are removed. They gain 2 notoriety in the English West March, and Thomas loses 1. So that was important because since he added 1 earlier, when he had the opportunity to place his 2 notoriety, he chose to do 1 in his home march. That actually lets him preserve a 3-2 lead in his home march. So that is the end of the turn. So the battle award, of course, goes to the Kerrs, and that allows them to jump all the way up to 9 notoriety in their home march. The 2 events are discarded, so Rough Wooing and our Ancremore go into the event discards. Thomas's horses are reset. I kind of already did that. That just means you put them back in the box. The attack indicators are removed. We put 2 new sheep in the debatable land. So now we can take a crack at them again in turn 2. Thomas's defense tokens are pulled back, and all the other defense tokens are put back on the solitaire play aid, so I'm going to do that. Thomas is awarded 4 victory points for the 2 cubes in his jail and 4 more for his notoriety for being first in the English West March and second in the debatable land. He gets no victory points for being second most in the Scottish West March. So he's going to end the turn with 16 victory points. That's a modest total from turn 1, but with cards like Keeper of Tyndale and the Devil's Beef Tub held in reserve, Thomas has big plans for turns 2 and 3. So that is the end of the playthrough. That was the spring turn, by the way. I didn't actually say that, but that was all the reset stuff, scoring your victory points, etc. All of that basically is what is contained in the spring turn. And then, of course, once you hit the spring turn of the spring phase, I should say, spring season of the turn, if it's turn 3, that would be the final tallying up for victory points for the game, determining whether, what your score is. It's not so much who wins in this solo version. It's basically what your score is that determines. So down here at the bottom, you can see you can either win or lose, and then it has victory levels here, and some of these are pretty funny based on your score. So obviously 16 in turn 1 is a real modest score, but as was mentioned, Thomas is trying to build towards big turns 2 and 3 based on the cards and the Reaver and everything that he has. So that is going to do it for this video. I'm sure I made some mistakes. I typically do. Hopefully not too many and nothing too egregious. But ultimately, my hope is that this helped you see how the game plays solitaire. For those of you who like to play or are forced to play solitaire, get a look at how this works solitaire. I'm sure this game is an absolute blast multiplayer, but as I mentioned, I have not played it multiplayer. So I don't have any real experience there to speak of on that particular side of the game, but this is by design a multiplayer game anyway. So that will do it. As I mentioned, thank you as always for watching. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing if you would. Also, if you feel like commenting, asking questions, etc., I do enjoy interacting with the people who view my videos, so any of that would be much appreciated as well. But in the meantime, my name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered, and until next time, happy gaming.